I'm your host, Chris Noggle, and welcome back to the show. All of you are going to be blown away with today's guest. Today's guest, he was a first into an industry you all will know, but then he, at a very young age, had massive success, which you've heard the stories, oh my God, at such a young age, somebody has success in making a ton of money, and he lost it all. And that's exactly what we're going to do. But let me tell you who the guest is in a second. Before we do that, I want to talk about all of your journeys to becoming a rebel banker. Being a rebel banker involves you getting knowledge, because that's the first step. You have to learn the secrets of the wealthy. But you know what? The person that told you that knowledge is power lied to you. It's not the knowledge that's power. Jason is going to tell you all about this. It's the application of the knowledge that gets you somewhere. The knowledge is just the precursor to what you need to do next, and that's take action. So folks, if you want success, you got to take action. And I'm going to test you right now. You guys want a challenge? I remember back in my hard times, I had to be given something for free to take action, because I just almost felt like every time I was going to do something, I had to be rewarded. So what if I reward all of you? Because we got to see if you can take action on this. I'm going to give you any one of my books. You can get this book teaching you how to get all the money back for the cars you're going to buy, drive, and own, or you can get Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery, or my other book, The Private Money Guide, all of them for free by taking action. You got to go to chrisnoggle.com and just click on the books tab and pick whatever book you want, and it's free. So let's see how many of you can actually take action to get something for free. And then what you're going to hear from Jason is you're going to hear how to massively take action, and you guys are going to be blown away. So let's dive into it. Jason Ferruggia. Did I say that right? Ferruggia? Ferruggia. He even told me how to say it. I feel like, all right, I should just go along with him and be like, I intentionally messed it up just to see how he says it. But Jason, at 19 years old, was one of the first to create underground gyms. You guys know it as maybe CrossFits. He was the first to that. He was the first to so many things. And he made he made a lot of money, 6 figures at 19. Can you guys imagine? And then all of a sudden he lost it all not too many years later. And then when he lost it all, he had to call his mom, and he was in tears, and he had to say, Mom, can I come back home? How many of you have had a story like that? You've made money and you've lost it all. Jason had to fix his mindset. He had to find his way. He had to build the man. And when he built the man, the world took shape. Jason, welcome to the show.
Chris, thanks so much for having me. I forgot to tell you before we started, your episode on my show was the most messages I've gotten from personal friends probably ever. Like, so many friends texting me doing, dude, this episode is sick. It's insane. I listened to it 5 times. So thank you for that. It was great.
Put my hands together. But you know what? Your episode is going to be exactly that here, because your story is so insane. We were talking offline, and I'm just like, there's so much to your bio. I'd much rather have you just tell my audience like what you did in your journey, because coming from me, it just sounds like an announcement. Coming from you, you can actually put the emotion to it. And let's just take a trip back in time to get this thing kicked off, Jason, and tell us, like, what was that like? Like, the good, the bad, the indifferent. Let's do it.
So I got into training because I was just the, skinny, insecure, weak, shy, the 98-pound weakling, right? And I got obsessed with it. So then I decided in college, I want to make it a career. So at 19, I started training people. What actually happened was I got tuberculosis, which I'd never heard anyone get besides Doc Holliday, So I was in school, got tuberculosis, had to take off a semester. And back then there was no internet, there was nowhere. So you had to order from the back of like fitness magazines. You had to order certifications and books. So I spent 6 months at home on bed rest, just reading, getting my first certification. That summer, I started training people. And instead of going back to school, by the end of that summer, I was on pace to make 6 figures. And I was brand new to the business. And it was like, this is insane. I can't go back to school. So I transferred. I was living in Jersey at the time. That's where I'm born and raised. And I transferred back home. And every dime I made for the next few years, I continued to go to school. I mean, it was on my 21st birthday, I was in bed at 9 o'clock because I was just grinding, nonstop working. Every dime I made, I saved up so that 2 years into it, I was able to invest in a small space, which was literally underground. It was in a basement. It was 1,000 square feet in a basement. And we just created this, very successful kind of movement in this gym. And it was back then, this is 1994. All the fitness was at the time was, you'd go to Bally's. I don't even think Bally's is still around, but you go to one of those kind of gyms and you do machines and the circuits and whatnot. Well, I was fortunate enough to get my hands on like these really old original strength training books. And so I was the only person around doing like sandbags and sledgehammers and tires and ropes and rings and all these things. And we had, and again, I didn't know a ton about business at the time. I did have one secret, which I'll get to in a second, but it just blew up, word of mouth. I didn't pay a dime for advertising. Where I remember there was a place, I won't name it, but there was a place, multi-million-dollar facility opened up about 3-4 years into it. And they were like, oh, we're gonna crush that Renegade guy in the basement. Didn't dent my business at all. I was actually crushing them. And so again, I'll get into the success.
And Jason, you're still working out of 1,000 square feet? Like this, during this whole thing, you're still in 1,000 square feet in this giant gym, which we've all seen opens up, and they can't put a dent in your dude. Keep going, man. How did you do that? Like, that seems almost impossible in people's minds, but we're back in 1994 too. So things were a little different. Right.
So what we did that kind of created, so again, I didn't know anything about business, and being, a year into it, I wasn't that great of a trainer, honestly. But I had original, unique stuff going on. And then I think great business advice always is be super different than everything else, right? Like, make sure it doesn't smell, look, taste like anything else. Like, especially nowadays, you got to go hard on your personality. But back then, the two things I had going for me were I'm half Scottish, so that side of the family loves to drink and party. I'm half Italian, that side of the family likes to eat and party. So I always knew how to party. Like, we would have fun at our house. We always had fun, even though there was a lot of screaming and craziness going on. We knew how to have fun. So I created something that was really fun. Like, when people came in, again, go back to 1984, they're playing Cyndi Lauper and you're doing classes. You come in, NWA, Public Enemy, I'm blasting old school hip hop. And this is when nobody listened to hip hop, And I remember even my dad said to me, he's like, you're going to be out of business in a year. What are you doing? This is insane. Nobody listens to this kind of music. No one wants to train like this. And adults, I'm 19. Adults were telling me that, why don't you train people at the country club, golfers? I was like, no, I'm doing my thing. I'm good. And we just kept doing that. And it was so unique. The music's cranking. And we even had, which I think, a good marketing is like to have velvet rope up and don't be so desperate. Like, we literally had no pussies allowed when you walked in. And guys would come in and we'd have an application to train. And if someone was offended by the music or had any problem, we said, that's not the gym for you. See ya. Like, there was no desperation. Desperation in sales is hard. There was no desperation whatsoever. It's like, no, you guys got to earn your way in here. It's a privilege to be here. And then what would happen is, because we created that, everyone kind of defended that, right? So like, you had to kind of earn your way in. Then you get hazed if you were new, like the older guys, I started with high school and college athletes, and those guys would go on to become pros, and they would want to make sure you were the right fit, because we had a culture. You had to fit the culture. And if parents came in and had a problem with the way, what their high school kids are being exposed to, we would all say, go ahead, take your business down the road. That's it.
Jason, man, like, this is 94 in the mid 90s. When did Fight Club come out? When did the movie Fight Club come out?
Oh, it's a great question.
Wasn't that like late
right
90s?
Around there?
Yeah. You created Fight Club.
Yeah.
You even knew about it, dude. Like, epic.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, man. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm like so into this. Like, I'm thinking Fight Club. I'm thinking like standing on that porch, like, nope.
Yeah.
And dude never leaves. And then finally they bring him in. Oh, so epic, dude. And like that model that you created back then, that's what makes that's huge today. But back then that wasn't even a thing. My first company was started in November 1994. And I'm thinking back to that, dude. None of what you're saying even remotely existed. And that was like frowned upon. And here you are doing the anti back in the days when there wasn't the anti.
Yeah. And what you had to do was to get all that stuff. Like, we literally had to drive to New York to the shipyards to get like chains and barrels and all these things. You had to know a guy who knew a guy, and get stuff. And so that's how we had that. And then what we would do is every Friday I started training a bunch of high school athletes, and they went on to college and they went on to pro. So I just had a ton of athletes always coming in. So Fridays we would make strongman day, and we'd go outside in the field in the back. So that was free advertising, because nobody had seen people doing rope pulls and pushing cars and stuff. And so all of a sudden now we're just getting a flood of people. And we literally, for 20 minutes around, every top high school athlete, the rushing record holder, the scoring record holder in basketball, the stolen base, like, they would all come to us. And so that was basically 12 straight years, 12 hours a day, just growing that business. And every dime that I made, I would invest back into just, getting more equipment and things like that. And I loved it. I mean, to this day, it was some of the most fun I ever had in my life.
That's so cool. You had influencers before influencers existed, and they were like the lead guys in all the sports, and they became your sounding board as to what today influencers on social media were.
Yeah.
So freaking cool. But then what happened?
So so at the time in 1994 at 19, if I'm making six figures, most of my friends were not making that. They're either in school, and then a couple of years later, I remember my one friend was making 35 grand, and he thought that was a ton of money. And for most of us, it would have been at that time, right out of school. I mean, I was a knucklehead. I was a terrible student. And so what I did for the next several years, again, because I was so insecure and I wanted people to like me, and I didn't have a lot of things that I needed to address, on the inside really handled. So, oh, Chris, you don't have any money? Cool. We're going to Vegas for the weekend. I got the Hard Rock suite, whatever. Oh, we're going to go to Nobu tonight. Oh, we're getting bottle service at Butter. Now, we used to go out and what was funny when we go out in the mid 90s in the city was you'd see Jay-Z in the clubs, you'd see Biggie in the clubs, you'd see Nas, you'd see Puffy. And we were always VIP service on my dime. I'm buying $500 bottles for everybody. And we're having a great time. And in retrospect, I don't regret it because it was a ton of fun. And I learned a lot of lessons the hard way. But again, from all that insecurity and just wanting to buy people's friendship and buy people's love, made a ton of mistakes. I started the business and never had really read any business books, didn't have any people there saying to me, hey, man, be smarter with your money, save, invest, pay yourself, like the basic rule, pay yourself a salary. No, I had no idea what was going on. Money was just coming in. What can I spend it on? Now, some of it was smart because I was investing back into the business, but for a long time, it was just, aside from buying equipment, I was buying bottles and I was buying vacations and I was paying for everything. And then one day, I'm 31 years old. It had been 12 years of the business growing and growing and growing, but I couldn't spend it fast enough. I could not, like people used to joke around and call me MC Hammer. That was my nickname. They would say, Hammer don't hurt. Like my one friend would try to check me. The only friend that would try to check me, like when I go up to the bar, he'd say, Hammer don't hurt him. But I'm still paying those tabs and everything, And then so 31, no money. I pissed it all away. And I called my mom. I got tears in my eyes. And she's like, I know what you've been making. How is this even humanly? Who could spend that much money? And I go, I have no idea. I didn't spend a dime. I have no idea what I've been doing with money for the last 12 years. I'm sorry, I didn't save a dime. I spent a dime for sure. And that was it. And I had to really just, check my pride and swallow my ego and again, crying my eyes out saying, Mom, I can't even get into it. Like, I can't even explain it. It was just been a disaster. I don't know. Can I please come and stay in the guest room for 6 months? I promise it'll only be 6 months. I'll be out of there. And that was it, man. I got in there and I checked myself and I worked harder than ever. I do remember like looking for change in the seats, and the cushions of the couch, eating a lot of potatoes, a lot of bagels. But that was a wake up call where I really had to get serious and start addressing some things.
Wow. And there's, how many of you listening to this have ever either in your life or known somebody that's had money and then it's all gone, and then they get it back and it's all gone, and you ever wonder why that is? It's a lot of exactly what Jason's talking about. It's your mindset. We forget, if any of you've ever read the book, The Richest Man in Babylon, you forgot the first rule of gold, the first law of gold, which is pay yourself first. He was making a lot of money, but he found ways to spend all that money. He forgot the 1/10 rule, to save at least no less than 1/10 of what you make. And they don't talk about it as saving. They talk about it as keeping. You get to keep. You can blow the rest, but every $10 you make, you got to keep $1, and $9 of it can be spent on anything from living to bottle service. But Jason forgot law number one.
And Chris, I love that you brought up mindset there, because so much of it was when I was younger, everybody that I had ever seen that had a ton of money didn't seem like a good person to me. Like they seemed like I didn't like the way they would treat the waiter, or they would make racist comments, or they would be degrading to people. And so I had that false narrative that money's the root of all evil. Rich people are bad, all these things. And when you have that, you're repelling, it's just maybe call it a hippie thing or whatever. You're repelling money. It's a law of the universe. If you think that money's bad deep down, and I didn't say it out loud, I didn't consciously think it, but I knew as a kid, oh, I don't like any of these people that have tons of money. So that plays into it in a huge way.
100%. I mean, It's such an important thing. And it's just as broken today as it was back then, Jason. I mean, the way people think about money, even now more so than ever, you're literally being conditioned through the media and everything to think that all wealthy people, all rich people are bad. They take. Listen, I'm on the other side. I come from this world that you come from, where money was bad. We didn't talk about money. People that have money, just do bad things. But now I'm on the other side, and I will tell you that's not the case. Now, being that money's a tool, money's a tool. You can use a shovel in the garage to go out and build and dig a beautiful garden that people just admire and get a lot of joy and smell the flowers. Or you could take that same shovel and go kill a person. It's just a tool. It can be used for good or bad. Money is the same damn tool. But the problem is the media highlights money because it is the essence of exchange in our world. So it can be used as a political almost bomb, or weapon against people to get them to hate the wealthy, when the wealthy are the ones employing most people. The wealthy are the ones probably giving the most. And, it's just sick. It makes me upset. But, we all have to go on our own journey and learn this. Like you thought that, but then how did that mindset change?
Well, so I realized, okay, I've been successful, but I really haven't been studying business. I really haven't been studying money. There's so many things that I had to do, over the next 10 years or so. I remember two mentors of mine, Dave Tate and Alan Cosgrove, said, read the EMyth. That was like the first business book I read.
Great book.
Yeah. So I read that. And then that just started me down on a journey where I became really obsessed. Now, for all those other years, all I ever read was training, nutrition, physiology, all these kinds of things. So I started on a journey of just reading one business book after another. And that made a huge difference. Like I started to understand all the things that I was doing wrong. And like a lot of small business owners or entrepreneurs, I thought, okay, no one can do it as well as I can. So I'm the guy answering the phones. And, eventually I started hiring people, but for way too many years, I'm the guy doing doing every single thing, cleaning the bathroom, answering the phones, training people, setting up appointments, whatever it is, like doing every single thing. And I realized the trap, which we all eventually realize, is that you do that because you have that silly mindset that no one can do it better, but it does take some time. So you're lazy and you're defaulting to, well, I'll just do it because I'm not going to take hours or months or however long it takes to train these people. So you get stuck there. And then I really, like you said, it was really a mindset thing where I just had to address things from childhood where I didn't realize, man, like I have a lot of anger. I have a lot of self-limiting beliefs. I have a lot of false narratives. I got to change all these things. And again, I spent so much of the money because I didn't love myself and I wanted everybody to love me. And that was something that I really had to do a deep dive on and do a lot of, just personal work and figure out, what are all these things that are holding me back? Why? And, those are a lot of challenging conversations with yourself, with your parents, therapy, reading a lot of books, going to events. I wish it was a super easy fix, but I mean, it's doing serious work.
Yeah, it's the journey we all must travel, and it's not going to be easy for anyone. I mean, it wasn't easy for me. It wasn't easy for you. We all went through that. My God, it's funny. Like if I could probably write like a documentary book on all the entrepreneurs that said exactly what you just said. Now you saw me, I'm over here nodding. We're like, me too. Like we get into our business. And, we are the business. So we think we can do everything better than anyone else. So we shut off all the things to build other people up. And that's the biggest thing that we need to sometimes learn in business. Many business owners never, ever learn this one thing that I'm going to say. They always work in their business. And when you work in your business, you created yourself a job that you have to trade hours for dollars for. And your ego will always probably land you to failure or some level of dissatisfaction with your life. Until you start learning how to work on your business, not in your business will only grow as big as you and your mindset and your heart and everything else that you embody can build it. And unfortunately, I hate to tell you this, it ain't big enough. You got to start working on your business. And I know you did, but it's just funny because like that's such a key thing for entrepreneurs. And there's so many new entrepreneurs in today's world because COVID created this vacuum where people didn't have to work and they had to recreate themselves and pivot. And a lot of new businesses got started. But a lot of new businesses got started that will end up being that business owner or entrepreneur's worst enemy because they just created a job that they literally can't free themselves from.
Yeah, 100%. It's funny. So many people will leave corporate America, right? And be like, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, small business, there's going to be so much freedom. And that freedom just spirals into chaos most of the time, unless you really create that discipline like you're talking about. And that was a hard lesson I had to learn, was how to really create, almost, even though I was a horrible student, like pretend I'm in school, or because you don't have anyone. If you don't have a boss, you don't have anyone creating that schedule for you and creating that accountability and all those things. So you have to learn to create that for yourself. Otherwise, again, you're just out of control, as I was for a decade plus.
That's crazy. So you started to find yourself. You started to fix your mindset. You started to really like get the knowledge that isn't so much just on fitness in your business. You started working on, how can I actually work on my business and how do I be a good business owner? So what was the next thing? So how long were you at your mom's house and how did you get out of that cycle and get on to the next page of your life?
So, okay, I was there for 6 months, and a friend of mine, I had started online. I was one of the first fitness people online in 2001, and I built up a pretty good following at that point. And it's funny because nobody knew it at the time. I still had my monthly column in Men's Fitness at the time. And here I am living at my mom's house. Nobody knew. And so I still have, some money coming in, but it obviously was, not enough to afford my own place and to afford, to be at the club every night anymore. So what I had to do was really get serious about making money online, because do you know Craig Valentine? I think you know Craig. I
know the name. And let's just remember, we were in the 90s. Where are we at now? Just so we can kind of take people on this time
so
journey.
This would be probably 2001.
Okay, so
I'm sorry, 23 around.
Okay, so like right after the .com crash. Okay, got it.
Yeah, so I started online and I developed a following, but I wasn't selling anything yet. So a good friend of mine, Craig Valentine, who does a lot of business coaching and things now, he had started selling. He also had a column in Men's Health at the time. Now he's left fitness. He's just a business coach. But he explained to me, all right, here's what I did for the last 6 months. I learned everything about online marketing, and he helped me. And we launched a product, and that was how I got out of my mom's house. Within 3 days, the 3 days of the launch, it made 25 grand, which I was like, this is unbelievable.
What was the product?
It was just a 90-day training program, an ebook. It was probably 50 pages worth of text and a workout. And so we made 25 grand, which was incredible. Because prior to that, I did start selling something on my own, and it made, I don't know, a few $100 a month. And then Men's Fitness did a one-page feature on me. I'd have my column, but they wrote a whole feature on me. I had pictures of me in there and everything. And they put my website. Now, today, this wasn't do anything, but my website being in there led to me making $300 a day for the next 6 weeks straight on this program. And I was like, wow, that's 6 figures. This is unbelievable. And then it died out and I couldn't figure it out. So then I sit down with Craig. He's like, all right, here's what I've learned. I did deep dive. I immersed myself. Here's what I know about online marketing. Let's launch this program. Makes 25 grand. I go, wow, there's huge potential here. And I don't have to work, 90 hours a week like I've been doing. So over the next several years, what I did was the gym was, my top priority. And then slowly over time, I started doing more online stuff till it got even for a while. And then I pulled myself out of the gym and went more and more and more online until eventually at year 15, I was able to completely remove myself from the gym, step away and be 100% online. And then, you can make exponentially more money and you can reach exponentially more people. So that was great. And and then again, Craig became a mentor. My friend Bedros Koulian, who was one of my closest friends, became a mentor. And that was a problem too that I had when I was younger, was I didn't want to ask for help. I couldn't accept help. I just had this kind of chip on my shoulder and I figured out why. It was, some of the things that all males have with relationships with their dad and whatnot. I figured out why, but I just couldn't do it. And then, once I did some of the deep work on myself, I was like, man, you know more than me. You know more than me in this. You know more than me in this. I want to be the dumbest person in the room. I'm always willing to. I think, and that's the part about success that I didn't know either, was that it really does come down to who you know and who you surround yourself with. And I'm only successful today because of who my closest friends are and how much they support me and how much knowledge and inspiration I get from them. And, like Chris, even if you and I were out to dinner with Bedros and Craig and a few of your buddies, like, we might not talk about anything that serious. We might just talk about sports or whatever, but it's like you learn by people's mannerisms, by their action, by how they treat the waiter, by how they treat each other, but all these things, you're always just learning by osmosis. It's not like you're saying, Jay, here's what I want you to do. Like, we're not always just talking in strict business coaching terms 24 hours a day, but you just learn so much by being around those people. And then the other thing that I learned from being around those people And the first intro to this was reading How to Win Friends and Influence People, which was a game changer.
It should be a must, and that should be along with Richest Man in Babylon. That should be a must for kids to read in high school. Like,
I agree.
They shouldn't be able to pass whatever grade they're in if they don't read that book and articulate that book back.
100%. Yeah. And so I didn't have any of those life skills, any of those essential life skills. I really didn't have, if I was being brutally honest with myself. And so I wanted to really work on those. And then, you talk about one of the traps is working on your business. In your business instead of on it. Well, I found that being internally focused on myself all the time, like, oh, how can I make more money? And how could I just do this? And me, was another thing that was holding me back. And I noticed that, I don't know you well enough, but I assume people like yourself and certainly Bedros and everybody else was always like, how could I help everybody else? Hey, you need a connection? You need me to introduce you to somebody? Is there something I could do for you? Oh, you should meet my buddy. Like, just the most generous people. Everyone ultra successful is super generous. And I found that being so internally focused was the cause a lot of my depression and addiction and anxiety. Because anybody, The Rock could look himself in the mirror and pick himself apart. I'm sure, like anybody, if you spend that much time a day thinking about all your past and your demons and your weaknesses and your flaws, yeah, you're going to be miserable and you're going to downward spiral into drinking or drugs or whatever it might be. But now, Tony Robbins talks about a state change. But it's not only if I get down on myself, will I just go for a walk or do some exercise? I'll call somebody up. Hey man, what's going on? Like, just make somebody laugh. And what can I do for you? That external focus versus that constant internal made a huge difference for me.
Listen, like, there's so many takeaways, and I just want to unpack a few of those. So when I was on your podcast, I think it was before or after we started talking about some people, and you just outright said, hey, what can I do to help you? And then, you connected me with Bedros, and you connected me, with a couple other people, which then we've got podcasts coming up. But in between there, and it just clicked on me, Bedros was at the mastermind I was at out in Huntington Beach, the Avengers. And he got up and he spoke, and there was this weird, like, I don't know Bedros, he's going to be on my show soon, but I don't know him. I'm in all the circles with him, but it took that one person, you, to make that connection. And then I listened to his story. So I heard him speak about his story, which was awesome. It was you want to talk about roller coaster rides? Like, had that roller coaster ride. But remember earlier we were saying how when we're young, we're taught to like frown on wealthy people, frown on money. Like, if he's got money, he's bad. Like, Bedros has got a lot of money. You have a lot of money. Like, all these people are multi-millionaires, and they are the most giving human beings. Like, when you get them on the phone, they're like, how can I help you? Oh, yeah. And you're thinking in yourself, like, well, what did I do that actually deserves help? Nothing. Right. It's their nature. It's some of the most successful people. I'm going to say not all, but some of the most successful people are the most giving and the most available. So many people draw this line. They put this invisible wall that doesn't exist, that this successful person will never share their story, will never help me, will never give me advice. They're the first ones that will. It's the person that has nothing that won't give you any advice, because they think if they give you something, it's taking something from them. It's you have to find people that have an abundant mindset. People with scarcity mindset, all my friends growing up, for the most part, scarcity. They always thought there was someone taking something from them. If you live your life there, you never get out of that little abundant mindset, or I'm sorry, that scarcity mindset. And not only that, you start to conform to their limiting beliefs, their failed dreams. All that becomes your life because you conform. Folks, we all have the decision to create whatever life we want. Whatever we ask of life, life will give it. Like, look at your story, Jay. Like, life will give you anything you ask of it, but you got to have the right mindset. You got to have the right heart and soul. And that heart and soul always starts with serving others, helping others get what they want. You didn't have to connect me with Bezos. You could have been like, well, he's my best friend, but maybe I'll get to know Chris better before. No, you're just like, dude, you got to meet Bedros. Like, do you know how much there is in that one simple act of kindness? And I'm honing in on this, Jay, because like, people listening to this have to understand this roller coaster ride you went on, the same roller coaster I went on, the same roller coaster Bedros went on. That's the journey we're on. Those are the trials and tribulations. Don't think you're going to avoid them. You're going to have to learn them, because first you have to fix the man. And then when you fix the man, the world takes shape. That's a little takeout. There's a story in the book, The One Thing, that tells that story. And that story will forever live in my mind, because how true is that? And that's what you did, man. You had to fix the man. And look at you now. Let's get a little bit into what you're doing today. Like, you're not just a little success today. Like, everybody's kind of heard this roller coaster ride and you're a humble guy, but like, let's get into the good shit, man. What are you doing today?
So today I've been doing the podcast for 8 years, which is great. And I moved to LA. It'll be 11 years ago now. And the move across the country was a lot of what we were talking about, was to reinvent myself and to work on myself. So I got to LA and I knew 3 people. One was a friend from college and 2 were colleagues. One I mentioned earlier was Alan Cosgrove. I left. I never thought I'd leave LA, but things got a little crazy. But I left 10 years later knowing everyone. Like some of my friends who are movie stars and pro wrestlers, and we would go out for coffee and they say, how do you know every single person in this town? It's insane. Like we used to live in this really beautiful building right on the beach. People had lived there for 30 years. I knew every single person in the building. And my friend would say, you've only been here 2 months. How do you know everybody? Because I made that my goal, because I realized, again, the power of how to win friends and influence people and relationship building, connecting people. And so that was really my deep dive when I first got there. So at that point, I had spent those years rebuilding the business. I learned a ton about business. I fixed a bunch of things. I knew enough about training at that point. So at that point, when I got to LA, it was, okay, let me learn all these skills about building relationships. Again, still rewriting some of those false narratives, getting rid of some of those self-limiting beliefs. So business and training were on the back burner. It was, reading all books on that stuff. I went to Second City for improv for 2 years, which pushed myself way out of my comfort zone. And the cool thing about it, much like I agree that everyone should read How to Win Friends and Influence People, improv, I think, should be required in high school, because we have public speaking classes. There's no listening classes. And listening is one of the ultimate superpowers. If you're not a good listener, good luck building relationships and being able to, be this super connector and network. So it teaches you listening skills. Obviously, it teaches you how to get out of your comfort zone and public speaking, right? They always talk, Seinfeld's got the joke about how if you're at a funeral, you'd rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy, because everyone's so scared of public speaking. So it teaches you that. It teaches you to make decisions really fast, which as well as anyone, as a business owner, you have to be able to make fast decisions and good decisions. You have to be able to think on your feet. You have to lead. So it teaches you so many essential life skills. So I did that. And then you don't meet these kind of people like Bedros who become your best friend, or like Justin Tupper, just hanging out at the house. You have to invest in events. I wouldn't say all of my closest friends, but many of my closest friends, I spent 5, 10, 20 grand to meet, because I went to these events. Like you just said, you were at the Avengers thing. That's where I met Bedros, at a thing like that one of our friends had. I spent 10 grand. I can't remember where we were. We hit it off and we said, hey, let's hang out when we get back to LA. Now, most people know how that goes. Yeah, let's hang out. Peace, see ya, end of story. I took it upon myself to be Bedros' social director for the next year. And we did everything together. He had never been to a sporting event. He'd never been to a concert. Like there's all these things that his first was done with me. And people would sometimes, like you were saying earlier, you have to be willing to ask people things and for help, but sometimes you might be scared because you're like, oh, Bedros is so busy. Chris is so busy. He's not going to help me. But there's something called the Ben Franklin effect, where if you ask someone for a favor, they look more favorably upon you. So the Ben Franklin effect is a long story. I don't remember if I know all the details, but Ben Franklin was running against somebody else, and this guy hated him. So what Ben Franklin did, now there's no email or anything, obviously. He writes him a long letter praising him, but he wanted to borrow a book he had. And all of a sudden that kind of downplayed the feelings that this guy had for Ben Franklin. He's like, he usually hated Ben Franklin. And all of a sudden, because he praised him and said, you're such a smart guy, I want to learn from this book that you have. I can't get it anywhere else. Can I borrow it? And then all of a sudden they became friends. So it's known as the Ben Franklin effect. When you ask something, like, I'm sure if I ask you for some kind of advice, it makes you feel good because I trust you enough to ask you. Same thing with Bedros. If somebody asks me, like you said, they're the most generous people. I could send a random stranger to Bedros and be like, you should ask him because he knows more than me. He'll get on the phone with the guy in 2 seconds. Like, that's just how people are. So again, go investing in yourself, going to these events, being around these people, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. Like where I was at that time in my life financially and where I felt like I was at personally, Bedros was way, way above me. So I could have been intimidated, like, nice to meet you, I'll see you. But I was like, nah, we're going to hang out. We're going to have so much fun. I'm going to connect you with people I know. We're going to do things. I'm going to make life fun for you. Because he was in the grind back in those days. And he'll tell you, like, he tells everybody that I was his social coordinator. So you can't be scared. You got to take those risks. You got to be externally focused. And now I have a whole system for building relationships that I speak on stages about. Even when I worked with the Dodgers, when they brought me in, one of the main things was, obviously I got to oversee the strength and conditioning, do things like that. But it was like, hey man, we love everything that you talk about relationship building on the podcast. We'd love to have you. There's some issues with the English speaking players, the Dominican speaking players. There's some issues with these players on the coaching staff. There's some young guys who actually now one of them is one of the best players in the league that we want you to have one-on-one meetings with because they have self-limiting beliefs. They may blow these multi-million-dollar contracts. So you cannot lose if you learn all you can about human nature and psychology and relationship building. Like those are just essential life skills. You can read all the business books in the world, but I think if you don't have those essential life skills and constantly working on them, you're always going to be a step behind.
Yeah, we all have to do a much better job of being students. There's too many people that I know, they reach a level of success. Maybe it's money, maybe, there's a lot of different things we gauge success on, but we get there. And then all of a sudden I see people like they've arrived, like they got to their level and they just failed to ever create a new level, a higher level. So they sit there. And then I've watched these people nosedive because once you arrive, the only way you can go is back down if you don't set the next place you're going to go. Like you always have to be evolving, always have to be changing your destination. And not only that, the whole journey, you have to be giving. I think that's the biggest thing. And it's a universal law, and I say that, but people, when I say a law, they don't quite understand it. They think, oh, law. No. A law. Let's think of one law that we all know, gravity. Go to the top of a building and jump off and let me know how gravity worked. It can't be bent. It can't be changed. It can't be modified. You're a pancake and dead. Hands down, like that's the law. So if there's another law that can't be bent, can't be changed, can't be modified, and that law is giving, why don't we all just look at that and be like, well, gravity worked pretty well. For some, it didn't work so well if they decided to test it, but let's try this law and let's give. And every single person I've ever come across that gives, and it doesn't have to be huge. It can just be at whatever level you want. They can't give enough. Because every bit they give, I don't care if it's money, I don't care if it's going out and helping, somebody cross the street or just making somebody smile. Every time they give, it comes back in return. Now, the time that it comes back, you can't measure because time is something we created. But if that was a law that we all just subscribed to and we just focused on every single day of our life, instead of focusing on me, like bottle service and all these things to buy friends, to make ourselves look good, to feel good, because we're empty inside. So we project outwardly and we try to make this false reality. If we just took that energy, that resources on the bottle, and we just redirected some of it, not all of it, because you can't do all of it all at once. And we reflected that on just helping somebody else get what they want, helping somebody else solve their problem, helping somebody else smile and just have a better day. Our lives would transform very quickly. And if you just kept doing that and you just saw the little measurements, right? I gave, and then you didn't focus on the get, but you all of a sudden saw that, and then you just gave more. And if you just compounded giving, instead of worrying about compounding all these other bullshit things we do in life, you would have more of everything than you could ever need. So you'd be forced to give. That's the thing. And, everybody's like, well, then how come Bezos doesn't just take his wealth and give it to every American? So every American is a millionaire, because they would be. Because Bezos, his wealth, his net worth isn't liquid. It's in all of his businesses. It's already been deployed and it's continuously deployed. Like you can't just say, oh, snap my fingers, Amazon would be gone. But that's the thing people don't get. When the media projects somebody's wealth, okay, people think, oh, he must just have that much in the bank. Dude, there's not a wealthy person out there that keeps any significant amount of money sitting in a bank. I'll tell you, because they understand the laws of money are keeping money moving and working for us. I'm going on a tangent, but dude, it's just like,
I love what you said.
Law. Like, why can't we just do it?
So, Chris, two quotes I love are Maya Angelou's, people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, and they'll never forget the way that you made them feel. And then the other one is Muhammad Ali, who says, service to others is the rent you pay for your room here on earth. Which, again, it doesn't have to be it doesn't necessarily mean that you're Mother Teresa. It doesn't mean that you're donating $1 million every week. It could just be as simple as you said, making someone smile, giving them a compliment, introducing them to someone. And for these essential life skills, one thing that I talk about is prioritizing it in a way that I don't think most people do. So if you came to the gym with me, you would know, if you're a beginner, you can get stronger. In 12 weeks, we could put 50 pounds on the bar. Or if I hired you, Chris, and I wasn't making any money, I know that in 12 weeks, I'll have saved up more money. I'll be making exponentially more. We know these certain things that you can get better at. But certain people, and I had this self-limiting belief or false narrative that, that's how I grew up. That's how my family is. We're not good people. We're not good with people. We're not good in parties. We're not, whatever it might be. And so you have to erase that false narrative. And so what I do is prioritize it the same way I would prioritize, keep track of things. You keep track of your ROI, your KPI, whatever. You keep track of your squat numbers, your chin up numbers. So in my efforts to do this, and this is what anyone I work with or when I talk about this on stage, you have to make it a priority where you wake up every day and say, okay, I suck at this. So what do I need to do? I need to engage people, push myself out of my comfort zone, make eye contact, give a compliment, and then track that the same way you track business stuff or workout stuff. At the end of the day, in a little notebook or a journal, track it, get better the next day. And so even to this day where I feel like I've gotten exponentially better, if I go to a party, if I go to an event with 300 people, if I go to just coffee with you, I'm going to prepare for that on the way there. I'm not going to leave it to chance. I'm going to say, okay, I know Chris is going to be there. I want to talk to him about some of this stuff. I know Craig's going to be there. I want to ask him about this. I want to make sure I don't get too distracted and just stay with Bedros because he's my closest friend. I want to make sure I give everyone equal attention. I'm going to have an intention for everything that I want to do. What do I want my posture to be like? My body language? What bad old behaviors do I not want to default to? What do I do when I get insecure and uncomfortable that I don't want to do? And again, that could be for anything. And then on the way home from that, I'm going to be like Kobe watching game film or Beyonce watching a concert back so I can get better tomorrow where I'm going to replay. Okay, did I do this well? Did I do this well? That was really good. I should double down on that. I got really awkward and weird here because someone brought up, so I got to address that. So I'm always trying to work on those people skills because they never came naturally to me. And again, now for me to be known as the guy who knows everybody, where, pro athletes and actors are always asking me to introduce them to somebody, that's just a testament to the work. But the work's never done. I'm always working on that 24/7.
Oh, that's freaking great. There's been so many golden nuggets that you've just dropped here on just different, simple, like applicable things to everything from, the early lessons you had to make, and anyone making 100,000 at 19 for the most part, unless you're Bill Gates back when he was 19 in the computer lab, for the most part, like you want to make it, you want to go enjoy it. Like I was a pro snowboarder at that time, not making nearly what you were, but dude, like I think I made it and I spent it that weekend. Like that's right. The thing. But we got to like make subtle little shifts and subtle little changes in what we do. And we got to follow simple steps and simple laws and rules. And in doing that, we can get to the desired result twice as fast, or we can ride this crazy roller coaster that you had to ride, that I've had to ride, that Bedros has had to ride. But it's just such a simple formula. Why is it, you think, that people don't just follow the simplicity of these different things we're talking about? Where's the roadblock?
So I've always been obsessed with Bruce Lee and Thoreau and simplicity. And some of my favorite books are Essentialism and the 80-20 principle and the one thing. And I just think, in the world we live in now, there's so many different opinions, different ways to do things, so much complexity, so much advice. We're just constantly overwhelmed. And, you hear that cliche that insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Well, any great athlete would disagree. Bruce Lee would disagree. Kobe would disagree. Bedros would disagree. That's not the definition of insanity. If you do the simple, mundane things repeatedly, over and over and over again, just to your point about paying yourself first, right? That's boring. Who wants to do that? If I tell you to do these certain boring exercises and master them over and over again, if I tell you to go to bed an hour earlier, like all these things you don't notice, but over the course of 90 days or 9 months or 10 years, those things add up. And anyone who watches sports knows this because they constantly you hear the announcers talking about, oh, that's basics, that's fundamentals, defense wins games, whatever it is. But we always get distracted. We always have shiny object syndrome. And you always want to do whatever, who said, was it Roosevelt that said, comparison is the thief of joy? Because you're always looking at your friends and your competitors and your colleagues. Well, I could do that. I should do that, But you got to just be grounded. You got to decide what you really want out of life, out of business, and not be so distracted all the time, not be so tempted to do those things. The people who are the most successful in any endeavor are just doing the basics over and over and over again. If I have someone that wants to transform their body, I tell them what to do, and they're like, it can't be that simple. I'm like, well, dude, that's what I do. That's what everyone I train does. It's that simple. But can you string up those red X's on the calendar for 90 days straight, for a year straight, for a decade straight? Simple as flossing, like flossing's boring. Who wants to do it? It's tedious. I don't like doing it. But there's studies that show it improves your heart health. It reduces your risk of multiple diseases. Like, floss every day, boring. But it's usually the simple things that are the most effective.
Yeah, I was just with an Olympic coach. He's like a top level Olympic coach. He was an Olympic athlete. And we were at a mastermind, and he did a whole morning session on it was training and how he trains athletes and certain fundamentals. And, I'm thinking, okay, we're going to be doing push-ups and we're going to be doing sit-ups. Dude, we did nothing that I thought we were going to do. We literally focused on things like concentrating on the 3 pillars of your foot touching the ground and concentrating on where the pressure goes through your foot, when you're doing an exercise. And he focused on we did so much with squats, but he focused on different ways to focus when you're doing the squat. And then we didn't even realize it was happening, but the whole time he's taking us through this, it was like a 2-hour long thing. And it was the most, I don't know, you would think there's no way this is going to make me stronger. This is Bruce Lee stuff he was teaching. We're doing all these exercises, and yeah, they were strenuous. I'd get out of breath. One time, I almost blacked out, and I was doing nothing hard, but my focus was on this one thing. So that part of my body was getting so strained, and it wasn't used to getting it, that literally it affected the rest of my body. And at the end of it, he had us go back to the first fundamental thing he taught us, which all of us struggled with. It wasn't like it was a hard thing. We're just not used to doing it. And we did it. And literally everybody in this group just got down into this deep squat. It wasn't just like a squat on 2 feet. Your one leg was back here and your arms out, and you're doing this thing focused on the 2 pillars of your foot, like your tripod. And everybody was able to execute that thing perfectly at a level where everybody was so deep into the squat, you would think, oh man, this is going to be painful. Nobody was even breathing heavy because we went through this routine of fundamentals. And it just reminded me of what you said. If people would just focus on doing these little things, everybody wants to get in the gym and pump the hard, the big weights, and I'll put another 45 on each side and do that. When this dude trains Olympic athletes, and himself, he was carved from a freaking stone, and I worked out the one day in the gym with him after this, and he did none of the stuff that I did. He just sat there and just did his things that he taught us to do. And that was the thing that kind of, with working out, made me realize that I've been taught all wrong on how to do some things, because he just taught me some fundamentals that if I just focused on them every day, although boring, although you might think, oh, this is never going to make my calves and my legs stronger, I would probably transform my body and literally be carved from stone like him if I just listened to him. But we just always want to go back to that old way of oh, I gotta, make everybody see me do this, or go in and let's do the cleans and I don't know. It's just, it kind of brought me just being fitness.
I think across the board in any endeavor, we're taught from a young age that life has to be hard. Life is supposed to be hard. Business is supposed to be hard. And people wear that as a badge of honor, right? Yeah. So we always kind of just get almost brainwashed into that. If it's too simple, it's I should be struggling more, I should be suffering more. Life's supposed to be hard.
Dude, man. And you had me on your podcast, with what I showed, is wealth hard to build? No, it's so freaking easy. Is being healthy hard to get? No, it's so stinking easy. But you're right. We in our minds make each one of these little simple tasks so complicated, yet all you are is literally one step away from whatever your desired result is if you just simplify and get with people that actually understand this, like you and some of these other people we're talking about. But how would people learn more about you and what you do? I mean, you do so many, amazing things. I mean, you were doing CrossFit before CrossFit was out. So what's next for you? And then how would people learn to follow you to see what you're going to be doing next? I think that's the cool thing. Get behind somebody that's doing unnormal things. I'm looking for the word, the extraordinary, and just watch them and follow in their path. So I'm thinking you're doing some extraordinary things. How do I just follow your path?
Yeah, so right now we have the podcast. It's Renegade Radio on iTunes. J.fit is my site, and then I'm most active on Instagram. It's J Ferruggia, and we have a bunch of different coaching programs now. we normally do a handful of live events each year. We'll see how that continues over the next year or so. And that's about it, really. Just continuing to evolve and grow.
We're going to put that website up just so everybody can really get behind Jay and just follow what he's doing. I mean, literally, like everything you've just heard, like how would you like to just skip to the front of the line? All you need to do is just follow where he's going. And you can do it because he's got a podcast. And anyone that's not listening to podcasts, all of you are listening to this, but you're listening to others, like that's the one. Renegade Radio, right? Renegade Radio, right. Renegade Radio. See how I just did that? Got to just keep repeating it. Memory. Get on that podcast and just listen. He's had rock stars on there, and then get behind each one of them. Just watch where they're going and just follow the path. Such a simple success strategy that not many people do. So, man, this has been awesome. I know this one's going to definitely be powerful for everybody because you dropped a lot of golden nuggets. Anything you want to say, in parting, any like quotes or anything that you think would really be the way people could kind of start to transform their lives?
There's a quote that I was introduced to recently, and I used it on stage when I gave a talk recently in Seattle. And, I kind of talk a little bit about envisioning your funeral, even though it seems, kind of morbid and dark. I think it's a good thing. Every single day you get the chance to write your eulogy, right? So like, I know for a fact what Bedros and Luca and Mike and my closest friends would say about me, what my wife would say about me because of my actions. But you get to do that. We all get to write our eulogy every single day. And even to strangers and, people that you just maybe impact on a podcast or on social media. And so I found this quote, it was a Native American proverb. When you were born, you cried and the world rejoiced. Live your life so that when you die, the world cries and you rejoice. I thought that was pretty powerful.
That is beautiful, man. That is beautiful. Live a good life, folks. Create something that lasts beyond this short little time that we have here on earth so that you're remembered. And that eulogy, that story, that quote, so powerful. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for another episode. Don't forget, take action on what you learned today. Go out there and get these books from the website, chrisnagel.com. They are free. And also check out Jason and what he's doing and get behind him and just follow him, and you will see the success path. Thanks, everybody. Jason, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much, Chris.